Hello everyone and welcome to Memory Flow, where we discuss fragrance and fragrance collecting, and welcome to the end of this mini series I just filmed today about chypres, because it started with Mitsouko and it will end with Mitsouko, and I find that very fitting, because here I have my latest purchase. God, I'm in the mountains and these packages follow me even here, but it's my own doing. And here I have two gorgeous things, one of which I won't show it to you. I just don't want to mention it now. First of all, because it's not a chypre, and this is a video and a series of videos dedicated to chypres. But the latest fragrance that I got is Mitsouko in EDP form and in the new bottle form from Les Légendaires. But also, as I said, while filming Mitsouko, I told you that I had already ordered the EDT in the new bottle, and I got it here with me. It's right here. It's the exact same bottle. So I'm pretty sure you've all seen these bottles by now, right? These are the new bottles for Mitsouko and for most every other fragrance from the house of Guerlain, with the exception of Shalimar. This is the Eau de Parfum. This is a 2023 bottle. I didn't check the EDT. Let's see, the EDT, what year it's from, but I'm pretty sure it's from the same year. Yep, it's the same year. All right, and here we have them, totally, well, almost identical. I would say that the EDP, which is this one, had to make sure, is a bit more deep in its color. It's a bit more that yellow is a bit deeper. Maybe this helps. So I had the EDT, sorry, for a few days now, and I've been waiting to film this video, which won't be a long video because I think I've said anything there was to say, or everything there was to say about Mitsouko in my latest video, and then in my very old video from 2 years ago, where I've done all the comparisons necessary between all iterations of Mitsouko. But these are the new bottles and the new formulations, and I think they deserve a sniff and deserve a comparison. Why not? Because I also have the older EDP right here, which isn't very old. It's from 2019. This is, by the way, as I said, this is my mother's bottle, and this new one right here, the EDP, is also her bottle because I got it for her because I saw that she didn't have much of Mitsouko left. So, hi mom. That's my way of letting her know, because she's not here right now. When you get back, you'll find a brand new bottle of Mitsouko EDP, just for you. But I think, as I said, I think they do deserve a sort of comparison, and also I think it's very well, it's important to me because, as I said, I smelled the Eau de Toilette from Mitsouko. I smelled it in a perfume shop, and the new bottle, and I found it just exquisitely different from the Eau de Parfum. and I think those differences need a bit of talking. I have my old blotter here for the Eau de Parfum. I will start with this, just to have it there in the background. Also, do note that here I have Crystal EDP from Chanel, so I am very covered in chypres. Right here I have La Panthère from Cartier, another wonderful chypre, which is just, I am enveloped in wonderful chypres, and now I will be enveloped in Mitsouko. So it's not very correct what I'm doing, because I may be influenced, and I will be influenced by other things that I have right here on my body. However, I'm quite familiar with Mitsouko, so I don't think this will be a problem all that much. First of all, I find the new bottles to be gorgeous, the bottles from Le Légendaire. However, they do not compare with the old iconic Mitsouko bottle, which is just stunning. This is just, it's too good. It's just too good. So I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe it's easier to make unified labels, whatever. And this Mitsouko is a stunner. As I said in my previous video about Mitsouko, it's amazing to smell different formulations, different births and rebirths of Mitsouko, because it's very interesting to find slight or not so slight differences between them, and also to see how Mitsouko has been treated by the years and by the changes and regulations, because as we all know, oak moss and IFRA, well, it's not IFRA's fault, but there's been problems with oak moss for years now, and I think, I may be wrong, I will stand corrected if somebody wishes to correct me, but I think that these new Mitsoukos don't have any oak moss at all, maybe. The note listed on Fragrantica says roots, not oak moss, which is interesting. But I can say from the start it is different. It is quite different. There is a lot more vetiver. There is a lot more vetiver in Mitsouko EDP without it changing the fragrance too much, but it does make it interesting, and let me tell you why. It's a very interesting vetiver. It's almost, it's, you know, we're talking about Guerlain vetiver here. It's a lot more pronounced than in Vetiver by Guerlain, but it's sticky, it's more concentrated, and it's almost into the realm of dark chocolate. Vetiver does have that in its raw form. This is the first formulation of Mitsouko that I smell that has this aspect, and also it has dare I say, there are some leather notes in this. I'm not crazy, people. I know what I'm smelling. I mean, leather in Mitsouko. Wow. God. So, am I going to have to buy this for myself as well? Because this Mitsouko is gorgeous. Jesus. Leather in Mitsouko. So, there are some leather hints. From the realm of industrial solvents, things that you might use to tan leather, things that you might find in other fragrances which are heavy in leather, but it's well, like cuir de Russie, right? It's the same type of hint of leather, but it's a very refined thing. My goodness, it's the first time I'm smelling this clearly, the vetiver, and also this hint of leather in Mitsouko. This Mitsouko is, I think it's less resinous, less ambery, or what I call myrrh, because it's not a true smell of myrrh. This one, the old bottle, has the true smell of myrrh. Oh my, they're so different. The true smell of what I call myrrh, it's not myrrh, it's amber, right? It's Mitsouko amber. This one is less resinous and more into the realm of vetiver. But I do remind you that that vetiver, this vetiver, is a lot denser than most vetivers. I have to let this settle for a bit. It's a shame I'm not able to smell this, to apply it on my hand, because I am a patchwork of fragrances already. But let me try the EDT, which I didn't spray, and I will do so right now. And the EDT, it reminds me more of my idea of Mitsouko from previous iterations. It's the EDT that reminds me more of older Mitsouko. But then again, now that I smelled it in the EDP, the vetiver is also a lot more pronounced here as well. But I do not get those hints of leather, or at least not yet. However, this Mitsouko is a green one. She is very green. She is very happy and even more joyful than usual. And this is why I got the EDT in the current bottle. I could have bought it in the older bottle. I've smelled that iteration as well, and not to say I didn't like it, but I found it too similar maybe to the EDP from the older formulations, so I didn't find it necessary. I have to remind you that I do buy these fragrances with my own money, so I have to limit my budget, otherwise, you know, I won't be able, I can't afford all of them. But I found that the new iteration of Mitsouko EDT is different enough, and it's interesting enough to talk about and even to have. And it is a stunner. I wore this fragrance a few days ago. It's one of the freshest Mitsoukos you will ever smell. And it is, yes, this is because of the EDP again, the new EDP. I can isolate the vetiver a lot easier now. I know it's there, and this is a floral vetiver that kind of reminds me of Nerolia vetiver without the Neroli. Well, it reminds me of Guerlain's vetiver, that's for sure. We're talking about Mitsouko for a few minutes, and I haven't said anything about the peach, haven't said anything about the jasmine, haven't said anything about what makes Mitsouko Mitsouko. But let me tell you, those things are still there. It's still Mitsouko, it's still the same aldehydic peach, it's still the same abstract nail polish remover scent that I talked about when I spoke about La Panthère. Gorgeous scent. And most chypres, everything's still there, with the exception of oak moss. Now, how does this affect the fragrance? I'm not sure. I'm not that well. Yes, this Mitsouko, the older bottle, yes. Well, we're talking about a new formulation here. Definitely, there are differences. When you smell the older EDP and the new EDT, I couldn't tell you if it's because of the oak moss or not, but this older Mitsouko feels a lot more corporeal, feels a lot more rounded, a lot earthier. That's the truth, folks. So if you have people who are into vintage or older fragrances, you might want to look for an older version of Mitsouko if the new ones aren't to your liking, because the new versions are different enough that some people might find this troubling. I think this Mitsouko, the older Mitsouko, the 2019 Mitsouko, is a little more colored, a little more vivacious, and just a little more interesting. And I think it has a little more things to say. This one, the new ones, I was talking to a friend a few days ago that I was telling him that I thought of a metaphor when comparing older formulations of any fragrance with newer formulations, or what you call a reformulated fragrance versus the original one, right? Because there are so many formulations, most people aren't even aware of them. So I thought of a metaphor because I was picking raspberries from my garden. It's becoming a trend, people, but I have a lot of berries in my garden. I have a lot of things that need picking. So I was picking raspberries, and if for anybody who's smelled or tasted wild raspberries, this metaphor might be a bit too violent or too striking of a difference. But if you've ever tasted wild raspberries, you know about the difference from the raspberries that grow around the house. How would you say that? Domesticated raspberry and the wild raspberry. You know of the differences between them enough to understand what I'm about to say. This is the difference between the older Mitsouko and the newer Mitsouko. It's still Mitsouko, but not quite, you know? Is it good? Is it... this is why I say that it's maybe a bit too violent of a metaphor, because the differences from the two fruit are a bit maybe too much, and some people, myself included, definitely prefer the wild variant of raspberry. They are a lot more tasty, more aromatic. They're, you know, the domesticated ones are just blander when compared. However, they're still raspberries. So enough ranting about raspberries. I hope you understood what I tried to illustrate here, the differences between the two Mitsoukos. And I think I'll use this metaphor again with regard to other vintage and reformulated fragrances. Think, because we were talking about vintage Kouros versus normal, everyday, nowadays kuros. It's the same thing. You know, when you're wearing them, you won't, if you don't have them side by side, I don't think it's that easy to tell the difference, to maybe tell them apart. And definitely when you'll be wearing the newer Mitsouko, it'll be fine. It's the same fragrance, it's the same idea. However, if you know, put them side by side, or if you're a lifelong fan and wearer of Mitsouko, you will definitely be able to tell the difference. But I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, as I think I've said many times over. It's just interesting to see the different formulations and the different different Mitsoukos, different faces that Mitsouko has. But I think if I had to, this is very difficult. I don't know why I put myself in these positions. If I had to choose a favorite between the EDT, the newer EDT, and the EDP, well, I do like the EDT a lot because it's so green. It's a Mitsouko so fresh that it will knock your socks off. I mean, if you love Mitsouko, do try the new EDT if you like this type of freshness in a scent. If I'm talking about the EDP, this addition of this sticky, darker, denser vetiver, and these leathery hints, I think they work. I think they make the fragrance very interesting. And you know what's funny? I think the denser parts of the vetiver might have been in the older Mitsouko all along. It's just that my nose was blind to them because I didn't have anything to contrast them with. And maybe because it's the lack of this oak moss that kind of makes me realize the vetiver more. Because I used to smell vetiver and Mitsouko, only the airy, more cologne-ish type of vetiver, not this denser, earthier part of vetiver. So I realized that I am a patchwork of fragrances, as I said. I have Cristal EDP here, amazing fragrance, beautiful chypre, achingly beautiful elegance, La Panthère, which is now in its ambery, there's hints of vanilla coming out of this, and I love how contrasting three, well, you could argue that there are 5 different chypres, bring out different aspects of all the fragrances. And mind you, all the things I said about Mitsouko might be because of contrasting scents as well, and this may help. But I realized that I'm not wearing anything right now, so I will wear my mom's new fragrance. I will wear Mitsouko EDP because I'm very intrigued about it. And I don't want to say that I chose my favorite, because I didn't. Oh my goodness. Whew. Such a perfect fragrance. I was very generous with my fragrances, with my chypre fragrances. I called all of them perfect, including La Panthère. Oh, and there's that fruity Mitsouko. There's that undefined, fruity, aldehydic, abstract, maybe peach, maybe wild strawberry this time. I don't know, but it's still there and it's still gorgeous. It's still Mitsouko, folks. No doubt about that. And when calling fragrances perfect, at least when it comes to Mitsouko, I know I'm right. Even in this formulation. So with that being said, this concludes my chypre mini series. I hope it was, I don't know, helpful or inspiring to you in some regard. If you have any other questions or chypres you'd like me to try out and smell, do let me know in the comments. And until next time, remember, fragrance creates memories, and may yours be happy.